questions here, guys. Nothing formal. Just start.
So, Darryl, now that you've had sort of a few days of reflection on the second round exit, I guess, is there anything that you've thought of in the last few days that struck you about just the inability to get out of the second round?
Yeah, it really wasn't about inability or negatives or anything. I think it was, I break it down through training camp, preseason, parts of regular season, making the playoffs, first round, second round, like that. So I don't look at the end part. I kind of look at the whole thing and see how as a team, was there progress, and then break it down individuals.
In your exit interviews with the players, is there any sort of themes that came up with them?
Themes.
Yeah, like
Make sure we're a better trained team. That's for sure. I think that was a huge step for us last summer and through the season. But I think that in the end, as much as our team improved, I think that we had players that have to take another step in that in order to become better players.
I think that was a factor.
Definitely a factor.
Are you happy with the progress that was made this year?
Yeah, we set our goals was to be a playoff team, and we did that. And then when we had to reset because of the way the schedule was, games taken away from us, and then the rescheduling. So we had to reset how we set our. Bottom line is there's no long-time goals ever reached unless you can achieve short-term goals, and that was something as an organization that had to be for sure reset. And so we made progress in that. So it's taking that and seeing how we can improve on that.
It seemed that the long-term goal is obviously to win a Stanley Cup, but
That's what 32 teams stay in training camp, and that's just not real, is it?
No, of
I mean,
course.
so that's not the only way you can ever become a Stanley Cup champion is to make the playoffs over and over and over and over and build on that, and when you say that, that's a 4 to 6 year thing for sure. I've been through that and done it and failed at it both, so I know. But the key in that is your organization. It's like the question: would the last round that we played this year, or the last game that we played? Well, the most important part is your group that has to stick together. That 23 to whatever it is with our group, 27, that age group is the most important part, right? Did those guys show progress? Because they're the guys that the team has either normally would have under contract or have rights to. So that's what your team's about. You can't talk about next year or last year or anything. You just strictly do it on that. So that's how, as a head coach, that's how I look at it, and that's definitely how the organization should look at it.
Darryl, what are you most proud of in this group that you coached this year, whether it be an accomplishment or just an overall set of growth?
I think just meeting the standards that are necessary to get some respect back as an organization, as a player back, as a team back in the league. I think that's really important. And then for me, 100% is being able to go out and talk to the fan about it, because they know and they get it, so they're not caught up in anything that's gossip or that's not real.
Have you sensed from the time you got hired in 2021 to now, have you sensed that those conversations with fans, the tones of them have changed a little bit, maybe more optimistic?
Well, it's no different than for sure. But I said this 16 months ago. Our fans just want two things, right? Honesty and hard work, and they don't always get it from all of you guys. They don't get that all the time, quite honest. And so that's when I'm out in the street. It's like me walking yesterday from Eau Claire to 9th Avenue to the tower. It took me 2 hours because you get to talk to people, and they get the game, right? So they're not doing it by what somebody says, or they do it by watching and understanding it. So that's the most important part. And then when you're in a market that has a pretty good idea on how to evaluate a player, you take a lot of that to heart.
Is there a certain moment you point to this season? Maybe it's the home winning stretch out of the COVID break, or it's Game 7 against Dallas, but is there a moment that you point to and say, that's Flames hockey now, that's what fans should expect of us?
I think we're really consistent at that. You know, I said last summer, that's how you have to what you're going to have to do when you don't have it. Again, it's based on your division. When you don't have the elite status, the one or two guys that are going to dominate games the way this division has, then you're going to have to do it by committee. So that's what I said, and that's what we did.
Darryl, that part you talked about getting the respect back, how significant of a step do you feel that is for this franchise?
I think it's really important.
What happens now in the sense of like, what do you do as a coach to sort of break down what happened and start to move forward? What do you go through in the next little bit here?
I think make sure that group that the team has under contract or has rights to continue to be better players, to work on their game. And they're all, if you look at it, that group right from, say, Vladar through the three young defensemen through 6 or 7 forwards. I mean, that's a pretty good group. And they all had outstanding seasons in terms of their growth, if you look at it. So that's kind of they've sort of set their own bar now, right? So as coaches and as players then, and as their families, make them better. I think that's the key. Those are again, that goes back to that's what your team's about.
Darryl, for a team that didn't have a lot of playoff experience going in, what can these 12 games that you played in the postseason do for some of the guys that didn't have a lot of experience?
Well, it was a good experience for them, and it's good that it hurts at the end, because then they understand it better, right? There's lots of guys that have played one round and won one game, so they don't really get much about it. But the next step is the next step. And if you look at when you talk about that experience, probably the biggest issue that you would see from probably All-Star break on would be the experience of our defense. You go into the playoffs, and I think Zadorov had more playoff games than any of our defensemen. He's only 27 years old. So it's a pretty important position that, in the end, did the best they could.
Darryl, how would you maybe describe the significance for the organization that you have your farm team in Stockton in the West, starting their Western Conference final this week, and just having playoff experience, not just at this level, but your prospects?
I think, Kaylee, it's really important, because the way your team, you have to be realistic, first off, with those players, but at the same time, when you look at the age group of the Flames right now, there was nobody on our team. In that again, I go back to that age group. It's the most important part of every team. That 23 to, and I'm saying 27, but it's 23 to, quite honest, to that 29 right in there, the most important players. So on this team this year, who would be the youngest in that? Vladdy, probably. So in order for your team to get better, because of salary cap and because of development and because of schedule, for younger players, you need 1 or 2 or 3 guys to push to make teams, right? So if you look at this past season, a boy like Shillington, who came in and made the team, right? So he did it the way you're supposed to do it. Instead of being given a job, he came and earned his job. So that's what those guys are doing in Stockton now. So is there 1 player there, or is there 2, or is there 3? I don't even know that are going to push to play with the Flames next year. That's what that's about.
Will you get closer in the next few weeks or 4 if they make it to the final round? Like, can you assess who might be ready in their playoff run?
Well, I have a pretty good idea now. I mean, you have to look at, first off, your base on your team and where your needs are and what the fits are. So that's what's important.
Do you have a talk with Tony Gaudreau about the benefits of potentially re-signing here? Do you lobby him to resign?
I'm got no further, you guys know how I feel about Johnny Gaudreau, and he spoke to it before he left, and you've spoken to Brad about it, so there's really not much more that I'm going to add to it.
Is it too early to set the expectation for what next year's team looks like, knowing that there's gonna be some roster turnover that you just
Well, there
don't know?
always is. It's not exclusive to the Calgary Flames, quite honest.
So can you set the goal already? Like, can you
No,
set
you
it today, or
can't.
you gotta wait?
No, you can't. It's like a July 15th, and then you can be honest, right? Other than that, you're just making it up.
So, in terms of looking ahead to the roster, like, do you start to think we could use this piece or that, or is it still a little bit
That's
too
for you to decide, like you did last year and the year before. You guys, you set the goals for the team. The organization should have done it, not kind of slipped into the locker room when you have a young group that hasn't had very much success, for sure.
On your 2-hour walk through downtown yesterday, did anyone mention the Jack Adams?
No. They're more interested in talking about the same things that you guys are talking about, which is good. That's what it's about.
Coming out to see Kevin Costner at Stampede?
Pardon?
Are you Yellowstone guy? You gonna come see Kevin Costner at Stampede?
I'll probably be cutting hay. That's what, middle of July? Hopefully it rains in Alberta and I'll be cutting hay. That would be my, kind of that timeline right there.
All right. All good?
Hey, how come they haven't taken the ice out in the Saddledome?
What's up?
How come they haven't taken the ice out in the Saddledome yet?
We have a staff tournament next week.
Mm.
Staff hockey tournament. Thank you. Thanks, Darryl.
Yep.
Thanks, Darryl.
Yep.